She sat at the wrong table, but destiny took over and led her to the right man. The rain had been falling steadily all morning, painting the city streets with a glossy, reflective sheen. Emma pulled her scarf tighter around her neck, shivering slightly as the cold drizzle soaked through her coat. She had been walking for nearly half an hour, dodging puddles, trying to get to the cafe that had become her little sanctuary over the past year. It wasn't just coffee that drew her there. It was the warmth, the soft chatter of strangers, the sense of calm that seemed impossible to find outside in the bustling, indifferent city. Pushing open a glass door, she was greeted by the familiar chime and the comforting aroma of roasted coffee beans. Steam curled in soft clouds from cups cradled in the hands of quiet patrons. She smiled faintly to herself as she scanned the cafe, notebook clutched tightly in her hand. A few tables were open, but one at the back, tucked beside a large rain-spattered window, caught her attention. It was secluded enough to write, yet close enough to watch the world outside in its gentle, rainy rhythm. Without realizing, she walked straight to that table and slid into the chair opposite a man who looked entirely absorbed in a thick leather-bound book. He had dark hair falling slightly over his forehead, and a presence that made her pause, like he belonged there, naturally, yet somehow he was out of place in the cozy corner of the cafe. Emma felt a momentary pang of awkwardness. "Oh, I didn't see anyone was sitting here," she said, her voice a nervous whisper. The man looked up slowly, his eyes meeting hers. There was something in that gaze, a quiet amusement, a spark of curiosity, that made Emma's heart flutter. "I think you're in my seat," he said softly, his voice calm and unassuming. Emma's cheeks warmed. "Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I really didn't notice. I'll move." "Please stay," he interrupted gently, shaking his head. "Actually, I think fate has a funny way of arranging things. You don't have to move if you don't want to." Emma blinked at him, unsure how to respond. There was something undeniably comforting about his presence, even though they were complete strangers. With a small, tentative smile, she nodded, settling back into her chair. Perhaps, she thought, fate did have its plans. She opened her notebook, pretending to write, though her attention kept drifting to him. The stranger returned to his book, occasionally glancing up as if aware of her eyes, yet saying nothing. There was a strange, unspoken rhythm to their shared silence, one that felt oddly intimate. Minutes passed like this. Emma sipped her coffee, glancing at her screen but unable to concentrate. Then unexpectedly, he closed his book, looked directly at her, and said, "Do you come here often?" Emma's head jerked up. The question was simple, almost mundane, yet it made her heart skip. Yes, I guess. Mostly when it rains." "There's something about this place that feels like home," she admitted, smiling faintly. He smiled back, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made the world outside the window blur into nothing. "I come here for the same reason. Rain has a way of slowing everything down, letting you notice things you'd otherwise miss." Emma laughed softly, a sound that startled her. It had been a while since she had laughed freely. "Notice things like strangers taking your seat?" He chuckled, and for a moment the world seemed lighter. "Perhaps," he said. "Or perhaps notice moments like this. Unexpected meetings that feel significant." Emma's heart thumped. She didn't know why, but she believed him. There was sincerity in his words, a quiet depth that made her chest ache with an unfamiliar hope. They fell into easy conversation, the rain outside forming a gentle soundtrack. Emma learned his name was Lucas, and that he was a writer of all things, working on a novel he wasn't quite ready to share. She told him about her work, too, about the long hours at the office, the endless emails, and the tiny dreams she kept tucked away for herself. Hours passed unnoticed. Emma had forgotten about time entirely. The clouds had shifted, the rain had slowed, yet they remained in that small corner of the cafe, talking as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. At some point, the cafe began to empty. The barista wiped down tables and murmured goodbyes to the last few patrons. Emma glanced at her watch and gasped. "I didn't realize it's nearly evening. I should be getting home." Lucas closed his notebook and smiled that same warm, slightly teasing smile. "I was afraid of that," he said softly. "But I think we'll see each other again. Emma's lips parted, a mixture of hope and disbelief. Do you think? I know, he said simply, standing and gathering his coat. Fate has a way of correcting its mistakes. Today, it put us at the wrong table. But somehow it feels right. Emma laughed, a nervous, joyful sound. Then maybe destiny is on our side. They exchanged numbers, their hands brushing briefly. An electric touch that lingered far longer than it should have. As she watched him leave, Emma felt a thrill she hadn't known in years. Perhaps she had truly sat at the wrong table. But destiny, as Lucas had said, had taken over. The days that followed were filled with small joys and tentative steps. They texted, sharing little glimpses of their lives, sometimes long conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning. Emma found herself looking forward to each message, each call, each moment of connection. A week later, Lucas invited her back to the same café, at the same table. This time, neither of them pretended to be strangers. The familiarity was comforting, like slipping into a story you had been waiting to read. They talked about their childhoods, their fears, their dreams, and slowly, layer by layer, a deeper connection formed. It wasn't long before Emma realized something extraordinary. This wasn't just chance. Every twist, every moment that brought her here, had led to this man, this presence that felt like home. Lucas, too, admitted he had felt it from the beginning. A quiet pull, a gentle insistence of fate that had guided him to the wrong table that day. As weeks turned into months, their bond grew stronger. Emma introduced Lucas to her small circle of friends, the ones she had almost forgotten she had, and he fit seamlessly into her world. She learned his quirks, his favorite coffee orders, the way he laughed when embarrassed, the way he noticed the smallest details about her without even trying. Lucas, in turn, discovered Emma's resilience, her kindness, and the deep well of passion she carried in everything she did. Together, they became a quiet force, building memories from the simplest moments. A shared pastry, a rainy afternoon walk, a spontaneous decision to watch the sunset from the bridge overlooking the city. One evening, months after that first rainy morning, Lucas took Emma back to the cafe. He led her to the same table by the window, the one where their story had begun. The rain had returned, falling softly against the glass, and the warm glow of the cafe wrapped around them like a comforting hug. He reached across the table, taking her hands in his. "Do you remember the first day we met here?" he asked, his voice tender, almost reverent. Emma smiled, her eyes glistening. "I thought I had sat at the wrong table." Lucas shook his head, smiling. "No, you were exactly where you were meant to be. Destiny knew what it was doing, and I knew I had found the right person." Her heart swelled. The words hung between them, perfect and true, like the quiet promise of forever. That night, as the rain washed the city clean and the cafe lights reflected like stars in the puddles outside, Emma realized something profound. Sometimes the wrong table, the wrong moment, the wrong choice. They were never wrong at all. They were just the universe's way of guiding you to exactly where you belonged. And for Emma, that place was beside Lucas, the right man at the right time, in the right life. From that day forward, she never doubted the magic of fate again.